Okay, so control click, and now this is our active layer. We're going to do some filling with color. We want to be on our new clean layer. We'll go to our color palette here, and let's start with a nice blue, and we can go to the edit menu, and there's a fill and a stroke command. Fill will do exactly that. It will fill our selection with our foreground color. So we'll go ahead and do that. So now we have a blue guitar body. That's looking kind of cool. If we had used the stroke command, and I'm going to turn off this layer so all we see is our selection on our clean layer. If we had used the stroke command, what stroke does is it's going to take the color that we have selected based on the number of pixels that we want it to be in width, and it's basically going to stroke that color all around the outside of the object, or outside of the selection. So it's important that you understand the difference between fill and stroke. We're going to use them both a lot coming up, but I don't want it right now. So what I do want to do is fill this with our blue color. Bam, got it. And then what I would like to do, I'm going to go ahead and add another layer. And on this layer, I'm just going to grab a couple of grayscale colors here and I'm going to grab our circular gradient tool. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to add a color background here so we have something visual to look at besides looking at this Photoshop grid all the time. All right, so that's just basically putting a little color back there, a little highlight around our guitar. All right, and we can forget about that now. So at this point, remember that, did you guys see what I did there? This is one of those situations where the history palette can really come in handy, because what I did was I actually drew my gradient on the wrong layer. So I'm going to go back here and back up a little bit, because I actually drew my gradient here instead of on my new layer. Not at all what I wanted to do. Let me get caught back up here. I'm going to click that, jump on this layer, and refill our color. Alright, now I want to go back to this layer, grab our grayscale, our gradient tool, and pop that out. Okay, there we go. Now we still have this layer with our transparency defined on it. It's below our gradient, so we're never going to see it unless we turn that gradient off and turn everything off above it. But it's there, and we're going to need it from time to time to make, or we could need it from time to time to make selections. So we're just going to hold on to it there. And I'm pretty comfortable with where I am, so I'm going to do a Control S to save everything as is. Now, a couple of things we could do at this point. If we wanted to okay, so now we have we've added some color to our background. I'm going to go ahead and call this our color background. And that's an important thing too. You remember early on, I probably didn't show you this. I may have skipped over it. The second way to have converted this to a background layer, or to a layer versus a background, is to just double click it, and you see you get the make layer option. And then that would it would tell us, okay, if we made this a layer, it's going to be the first one in the stack, so it's layer 0. That would have accomplished the same thing as duplicating the layer like we did earlier, and I forgot to mention that earlier. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to double click. The same thing applies to any other layer in the stack. If you double click on that text label, I'm going to call this our original. I can spell correctly today. So we have our background, our original, we have our color background. I'm going to call this our blue body. And this we're going to make into a white binding. I'm going to show you an example of how we would use we've used the fill command to get our color here. I'm just going to double click on my click on my foreground color. I'm going to change that to white. We showed you an example of fill, which we used to fill the guitar body. I'm going to jump in here and grab that selection again just by control clicking on that icon. And this time on our white binding layer with it active, paintbrush is turned on there, so we're good to go. And it's also hard to miss because the layer typically will highlight and you know which one you're on. So now I'm going to go to Edit, and instead of Fill this time I'm going to use Stroke. And when I do this, I typically will use, for a binding, I will use the center of the stroke on this selection. So 3 pixels will be inside and 3 pixels outside of the line. Obviously, if I did inside, they would all be inside the line. Outside, all of them, 6 of them would be the outside of the line. And I do this just so the layers kind of overlap a little bit and there's no weird transparency between the edge of the binding and the edge of the body. So I'm going to just hit that, bam, and just like that, we have a nice white binding around the body. Now it might look a little weird by the time this gets to the web, but trust me, that is a nice, clean, crisp line, and it follows exactly around the outside of our body with the pretty even spacing. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to do a little Control S to save the project. So we made this binding by using the stroke function. But you can't really see it on here, but our white binding lives on this layer right here. Now, if I wanted to duplicate this layer, drag it to the Make Layer icon, and we will call this black binding. I can control click, just like any other selection. We control click there and we get the outline of that blue body. If I control click this, I get, you can see that there are now 2 rows of magic ants, or little dancing ants there, marching ants, whatever you want to call them. So that's defining a space now. Where we worked with a single line before and we stroked the white color to either side of that single line of selection ants, we're now working with a defined space. There's basically 2 lines of marching ants that go all the way around the outside of the guitar. So now with that happening, we can, again, I'm going to change this to black for my foreground color. We can now go and use the fill command because we have a defined space, and just going to tell it fill that with foreground color. And just like magic, and turn off our white one so it's not contrasting, we now have a black binding around the outside of the guitar. And it's pretty cool. I'm going to do one thing really quickly here. I'm going to actually change this to a green color. This is the guitar I'm building, and the one I showed you a minute ago is kind of a dark green, so that'll be what we're shooting for, so it might as well represent that. Alright, so again, Control S, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to keep it. We can kind of just flip back and forth between our binding looks, find the ones we like. Okay, so now we have our guitar shape, we have a binding outline for it. We'll just leave the white one on for now. And this is all fine, but it in no way resembles the guitar we saw in the completed project. The only thing that resembles is its shape. It's very flat, very uninteresting. You could do a mock-up with this look, and certainly it would help you, check scale and how different colors look on a particular shape or whatever, but it doesn't really get what we're after.